This is Angie Demmel. She and her husband Dave and Lois Pankratz went to Colombia in June of this year for a medical mission.
The first day was pretty much sorting through all of the medical supplies and then also multivitamins. We had Army surplus bags that were great big green canvas bags that were full of multivitamins. And then we sorted those out into 30-day supplies so that each patient that we seen could receive those medications.
So you had to anticipate every kind of condition and disease that you were going to see down there over those 10 days.
We did. And every single year, I'm sure they experienced something different. Every patient we knew was going to get a 30-day supply of multivitamins, and then every patient also got a dewormer. The first day that we actually went out into the valley, which was down in Granada, which was like a 4-hour drive out of Bogota, and we set up clinic, there was devastation from flooding down there. The people that we seen when we drove in were up into ankle-high deep water that they have nowhere else to go. I mean, they stay in their homes, they're still living in their homes, and their homes are flooded.
Now, it sounds like you set up your clinic in a number of different places. How many different places did you set up your clinic?
We set up clinic 5 different days. The first day we actually seen the kids from Children's Vision, so we could kind of get a feel for how it was going to be run for the rest of the days. Then the second day we would leave about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we would load the bus, and then we'd drive 3.5, 4 hours down into a valley. So it would start off, it would be kind of rainy and cool, and then we would go down into the valley and it would be hot and humid. So typically we would set up our clinics in a school, and the schools down there are nothing like our schools here. I thought they were condemned schools. We would set up in kind of a courtyard or underneath a pavilion, and then that's where we would set up the clinic area. Then we would have a triage area, and people would be lined up. There'd be hundreds and hundreds of people already there waiting for us when we would drive in with the buses. We've seen probably about 1,000 patients each day that we were out. And then that night, we stayed overnight in a pavilion that was called the Club, and it was kind of a big gazebo, and we slept out on sleeping bags out on a tile floor. So that was an adventure. We woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and you could hear the parrots and you could hear the monkeys screeching in the jungle, and you knew you weren't camping in Minnesota anymore. And so then after breakfast, then we set up a clinic again in another school in Villavicencio, and then seen about another 1,000 patients. All the time having police escorts with us at all times.
You mentioned there were how many people on your teams?
There were 78 team members. The evangelism team was from Colombia, so it was all in their native tongue. They watched videos. They read the prayer of salvation. There was people saved every single day while we were out.
Now, you mentioned that at one point you were actually helicoptered out into the interior of Colombia.
So this was the first year that Children's Vision had flown with the Colombian Air Force. And you walked onto the C-130, which was a very large aircraft, larger than what I was expecting. So we all sat down on these red kind of canvas cot type things. That day we seen over 1,200 patients, and it was extremely hot, and it felt like a jungle. And the place that they set us up at was the Air Force hospital, which was right across from the Air Force Base in Puerto Salgar. We had a few of the Colombian Air Force dentists that helped us out that day.
So the dentists were able to bring drills and all the kind of equipment we see in an American dental office?
The resources for the dentists were a little scarce compared to what we have for resources. It looked kind of like a fishing tackle box. Their equipment was run with extension cords, and the dental chairs were pretty much like a blue cot. I'm not sure how many patients they seen, but there was many people that were in line to see the dentists. And then also what Dave and Lois would do is they would help set up the humanitarian effort. Patients would get shoes, clothing, coats. The evangelism team would hand out tracts which would have information on their new salvation, information about Jesus.
You must have put in some long days. Did you wait until all those 1,000 people had actually been through the clinic? Or were you forced to quit when there were still people in line? Or
There were many days where there was probably a couple hundred people that did not get to be seen because by 5 o'clock it was starting to get dark because there's only about 12 hours of daylight down there. And the patients that didn't get seen for that day, we would hand out, everybody still got their multivitamin, everybody got a dewormer, and everybody got, I believe, the tracks from the evangelism team. So they at least got to go home with something. And people were so grateful. They were always thanking us, even if they didn't get seen. I mean, when we were leaving on the bus and you felt bad because you didn't get to see them, they were still saying, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for helping our people.
After all the effort and the time and so on, do you think that you'd be open to taking another trip like this, another medical mission?
I definitely want to go back. I fell in love with the people down in Columbia. The team experience was amazing, and I love all the kids that we got to meet. I definitely want to go back down, even for a humanitarian effort maybe. There's so many projects to do, and I know Janine would keep everybody and anybody busy that would come down and be willing to help.
So it sounds like a much more memorable vacation than a week at a resort in northern Minnesota.
It was very memorable. Lots of memories, and there isn't a day that I don't think about Columbia. I love it down there, and I definitely want to go back. And I recommend anybody that wants to take a leap of faith to go and do what we're told to do. You know, God tells us to go, and that's what we should do. We should go.